Well, welcome to the podcast, Happy and Single. I'm your host, Joseph Anderson, and you can find me on Instagram at the It's Possible Guy, and you can find our podcast Instagram at Happy and Single. And today I have the great privilege of having a conversation with my friend Paul Green. I'm going to give him a chance to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about him.
Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Green, and currently I'm living in Los Angeles. I'm pursuing comedy and acting from Arizona, where I met Joseph. And about 6 years ago, decided to uproot my life and move to Hollywood to pursue my dreams of being a comedic actor and performer. And I guess the reason I'm on this podcast is I've also been single pretty much my entire life, except for like a few months here or there.
The not single parts are the abnormalities or whatever they call those.
Yeah, the not single parts have been the vast minority. I think my longest long-term relationship was probably about 2 months. Well, that's my longest relationship with a woman who was in the relationship with me. I've been in relationships with several women who were just not actually in the relationship with me. However, up in here, I was every bit as committed to them as they were not committed to me. But that's more of a psychosis thing than a actual relationship, I think.
You were committed the full 110%. They were committed 0.
Exactly.
No, dude, I think we've all been in those type of situations. I mean, I'm right there with you, man. I haven't the amount of relationships I've been in to haven't been in are, I don't know, maybe that just means that we know a little bit more what we want and we're not willing to settle for less.
Well, that's a real positive way to look at it. Or delusional, but I find that those two things are actually very closely related.
Hey, you know what, man? If I can live happy in my mind, in my fantasy land, enjoying my life with my wonderful wife and kids and everything else that's going to come in my life, I'll take it. No, I probably wouldn't. That would be, I don't know. I think some people do, though. I think some people live in that world of just like, what's going to happen when this happens. I mean, for so many years, I wasn't that happy being single. And part of that was because I kept waiting forgive the cliche, but I kept waiting for the shoe to drop. And it's like, this is it. This is the moment. And I think especially when you don't there's some people that are like serial daters. I've never been a serial dater.
That would be me, by the way, just FYI.
I've never been.
Just before you're about to, speak disparagingly of serial daters, I think that would be categorized as that.
Well, my definition of serial daters is a person that's in a relationship and then they're in another relationship and another relationship and another relationship. Like they never get out of relationships hardly. They're.
Oh, then that wouldn't be me because I'm just never in a relationship. So
I know, and I think that's actually sometimes super healthy, but. I think about it in terms of, I think some people just get into bad relationships just for the sake of getting into a relationship. You think so?
Yeah, obviously everybody's on their own journey and, doing their own thing. And I don't like to pretend that whatever is going on in my life is somehow more healthy than, somebody who's maybe in a relationship that isn't ideal. I'm not necessarily sure that, because everything is a learning experience. So whoever's in a relationship that maybe isn't their ideal, or they're staying in it because they're afraid to leave, or they're staying in it because they're lonely or whatever, it's like, well, that's the growth that they're going through, and whatever growth that I'm going through, where I never really found that right situation or that right person, it was just always, I would find a woman and who I would just kind of idolize and would put on a pedestal, like, oh, she is it. And kind of what you're talking about, like, oh, if I could be with this person, that would be the missing piece to my life. And then once I get in that relationship with this person, then my whole life will just, fall into place and perpetual happiness forever. And it's really, it's not to disparage Hollywood since I'm in it and that's what I want to do. But I mean, it really is the rom-com scenario, right? It's like this impossible scenario. You have these two people who are, just these beautiful people or whatever. And they finally meet up at the very end and then the movie ends, right? And the assumption is like, oh, if I can just get Meg Ryan to fall in love with me, then my life is done. Because that's when the credits roll, which again, fantasy versus reality. We all know that that's not where the movie ends. And there's so much more that goes into having a successful relationship, and that being happy actually has very little to do with who you happen to be in a relationship with. It's the same thing, I think, with like money. There's this constant strive for, I have to achieve a certain level of financial success or career success. And the illusion, of course, is once I have that money or once I have that career, that then happiness will be the result. Yet we can all point to examples of people who have gotten that money, gotten that level of success, and they're still every bit as miserable and their lives are still unfulfilled. And there are people who don't have those things who live very meaningful, purposeful lives. So the relationship, the money, the status, the career, I think we know enough now to know that actually isn't what doesn't actually equal happiness. However, happiness internally seems to attract those things naturally and perhaps in a more healthy, organic way.
Paul, you brought up so many really cool points.
Yeah, I know I did.
It's like, I got this.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing I thought was interesting is just how you said everybody kind of, does their life differently. One person might choose, hey, I'm going to wait for the right person. And one person might feel, oh, you know what, I'm going to date this person because they're good enough for now. And it might develop into more. And I was thinking how, each of us cope with whatever situation we're in, however we do. And I think it's a really cool point you brought up about, not judging that. And, the other thing you said that just kind of really hit me, I really enjoy puzzles. So like, I go through phases. I've got a lot of these really cool Thomas Kincaid Disney puzzles. Oh, nice, dude. He's got the Rubik's Cube. Like, I enjoy puzzles. And I was thinking about, when you said something about a puzzle piece, how like you finish a puzzle. So I finished a puzzle. This was a few weeks back, maybe a month ago. And it's funny because I was looking for this puzzle piece. I was looking and I was looking and I was looking and I was looking. And it wasn't until, a little bit later that I actually found it. You can see this countertop behind me is kind of an interesting color, and it was totally blended in the far corner. And I just never saw it. But how many people are going around, walking around in circles around the table, looking for that one puzzle piece, not realizing that their life is actually pretty awesome the way it is. And when that puzzle piece does find them, that will be really cool too. But in the meantime, it's like, but we have that thing of completion. Like we want to have this complete life, not understanding and knowing that we don't have as much control over our lives as we think we do. I mean, I used to think we could control our thoughts and all this other stuff. We don't. Our thoughts they come in and they come out. Like it just kind of happens. And it's interesting because we had an interview probably about 30 episodes ago with a guy that actually lost his wife. So he married when he was 28, lost her when he was 38. And he's actually an incredibly happy guy. Whereas I know another man that was not so happy when his wife passed away and ended up just not having a very happy life for the rest of his life. And he pretty much died in not the best of situations. And so, it's really interesting when we think about that of just, enjoying what we have, enjoying what's right in front of us. Because maybe, I don't know, maybe it's like, I mentioned with the countertop, we're looking so hard that we can't find it. And it's right there, and it'll show itself at the exact right time. I mean, as it usually does. there was another thing you said too that I was trying to think of, but it's lost. So if it comes back, I'll let you know. But so Paul, what has helped you find happiness in your life?
Well, using the puzzle analogy, this is what's ironic for me is I actually like building puzzles as well. However, once I've finished the puzzle, there's actually no more enjoyment. I get very little enjoyment looking at a completed puzzle. That's actually not the purpose. Once the puzzle is complete, I usually go, okay, and then I put it back in the box. And the enjoyment of a puzzle is putting it together. And at least for me, that's the challenge. That's the fun part is trying to put all of these pieces together. Once all the pieces are together, then I'm kind of done. And then I put it away and then I want to move on to the next puzzle. Same with this Rubik's Cube. I've solved this 1,000 times. When it's solved, it's boring, right? Like I had this solved this morning and I was just like, well, I'm going to mix it back up so that I can solve it again, right? So, and I've heard these analogies a lot, like, it's the joy is in the journey and stuff. And I never really wanted to believe that because I was like, that sounds cliche. And that is kind of upsetting because there are things that I want to accomplish. I do have these goals and I feel like our society is, at least in my perception, a very goal oriented. You got to go get your dreams. You got to set this goal. You have to hit this mark. You have to make this much money. You have to get this out of debt. You got to get this house, this car, this type of family life, this type of status, this type of security. It's always get. But the ironic thing is, at least for me, the moment that I get that thing, it's just like the puzzle. Well, now the puzzle's done. Now I don't actually enjoy it. What I enjoyed was trying to get it. Trying to get it is actually where the fun and excitement, at least for me, is. And the challenge is once you have something, then it's not appreciated anyway. It's, kind of like you were saying, like not really appreciating what I have. It's like, yeah, I didn't actually appreciate the puzzle once it was put together. Matter of fact, I bought a puzzle for my birthday, like this big puzzle, like 2 years ago as a birthday present myself or whatever. Mm-hmm. I put it together, and once it was put together, and it was a big puzzle. Once I actually had the puzzle completed, I didn't enjoy it anymore, and I literally just put it away. And I think I threw it away. I was like the whole reason I bought that puzzle was for the process of putting it together. That was actually the exciting, enjoying, fulfilling part. And maybe even the word happiness is probably a problematic word, because what is actually, like, what does happiness mean? And I think that's a word that can have multiple meanings or connotation, but I can feel happy if I eat a candy bar, but is that actually like happiness, right? And and I don't want to get into semantics, but we can look at joy versus happiness versus fulfillment, and versus pleasure versus enjoyment. And ultimately, to get back to your original question, what makes me feel happy? Well, I'm seeking fulfillment, and what is fulfilling to me is reframing what I actually find, what actually makes me happy. And I'm in this process. I'm not great at it yet, but what I'm trying to reframe is actually just being in the moment, always just fulfilled in what I'm doing in that moment. And if I want to set a big goal, which I do, like I'm a big believer in goals, I'm a big believer in manifestation, I'm a big believer in going for things that just seem absolutely impossible. However, once I set those goals, I make sure that I'm not looking for the accomplishment of the goal for happiness. It was the setting of the goal that was happy and fulfilling. And it's then living each moment, even in pursuit of that goal. But it's not the illusion that once I get the goal, I'll be happy. It's that I'm putting the puzzle together right now. And that's what's enjoy. And that's what I receive enjoyment from. That's what's fulfilling. That's what brings happiness. And if that isn't bringing me happiness, then to me, it's not, oh, my life is not happy because I don't have this thing. It's like, well, maybe I'm just putting the wrong puzzle together. And if I'm not happy putting the pieces together, then it doesn't matter what the puzzles, like if I don't receive happiness going for my goal of being a comedic actor and whatever, if the puzzle pieces don't bring me happy and fulfillment, well, then getting the puzzle completed sure as heck isn't going to bring me happiness and fulfillment. So I should find another puzzle to build.
I find it hilarious how much we've been using this puzzle analogy, but
Hey, you brought it up, man.
I really love it. I really love it. Of, like you were saying, the point is of the joy is putting the puzzle together. Like if somebody just handed us a picture and said, "Oh, here's your puzzle, it's already done," you'd be like, "Jerk."
We already have the picture. It's on the box.
Yeah.
Right? Like we already know what it looks like.
But if they handed you a puzzle that was all completely done, like all the pieces were put together, like I took the time to do it for you. You're welcome.
Right.
Like we wouldn't be very happy. And it's interesting you brought up the goal thing. Like I was watching, have you seen the movie Soul?
Yeah.
So I was watching the movie Soul just a few weeks ago, and I saw something so differently. I was the part where he's he's played the show, and afterwards he asked the lady, he's like, "Cool, what do we do next? What's next?" And she's like super calm and reserved. She's like, "Well, we show up tomorrow and we do the exact same thing." And you just see the joy drop out of his face, and he's like, "Wait, what? No, this is what I've waited my entire life for. Like, what do we do next?"
Right.
That is like that's the puzzle that we've put together. And I think as people grow in life, like, I've seen your growth as a comedian, and like, from the infancy stages, and it's been so cool to watch. But it's almost like we have to keep challenging ourselves because we're building a bigger puzzle. It's like, okay, cool, I've got this one done. I want to go play with a different puzzle. But so many people, they feel like, oh, I've got this puzzle done. What often happens for, plenty of celebrities is they get super bored. I mean, you think, we're both from Arizona up in Scottsdale. There's plenty of very, very wealthy women that, they're married to these men that are, ridiculously wealthy, and they sit around all day just thinking of the next thing to do, trying to like find this enjoyment, not understanding that enjoyment, and there's no judgment to them. Like that, if they're happy doing that, that's awesome. But I know plenty of them aren't happy. And, so enjoyment comes from the challenge. It comes from the fight. It's like I was watching I was randomly watching this like prison show, and there was this guy that was just jacked out of his mind, one of the prisoners. And the guards were trying to take him to a different part of the prison. And all of a sudden he starts, like, they have to get like 6 or 10 of guards, and they all start fighting. And then afterwards, they're almost all laughing, including like the guy, because we all want a challenge. That guy doesn't have very many challenges left now that he's in prison for maybe life. I don't remember. And so he creates this game. He creates this challenge. So it's a puzzle is just a game. And, maybe we get so fixated on, oh, if I do this puzzle, my life's going to be perfect. Have you seen the show Ordinary Joe?
Mm-mm.
Oh, dude, it is awesome. I don't usually rave about primetime TV, but like it is, the premise is this character, he's at graduation day. He has 3 different routes he can take. He can go with the girl he's been with forever. He can go with this other girl he just met that day, or he can go with his family, and every road takes him a different place. Every episode they play out like from 10 years later, all 3 scenarios simultaneously in real time. And it's fascinating because one, he becomes a rock star, but he's still got challenges. And that one, he really wants to have a child with his wife, and he's still got challenges. Like everybody has challenges. And I think sometimes we think, oh my goodness, if I just got past this challenge, I would be invincible. And it's like this grand illusion.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at anybody who we idolize in our society, look at like a Tom Brady, look at like a Tom Cruise, look at a Jeff Bezos, right? Like these people who have achieved like monumental success. And it's like, I think about it like, what does Tom Brady do every day? Tom Brady wakes up and studies football, and he hasn't had a hamburger in decades because he only eats, like milk, like protein shakes, you know what I mean? And we're like, oh, he's married to a supermodel and blah, blah, blah. I watched this documentary with Tom Brady. It was like 2 years ago. I think it was after Super Bowl number 5, not Super Bowl number 6. And what was he doing that day? He was on the practice field with a quarterback's coach throwing footballs. Nobody around, no cheerleaders, no stands of fans, him just like working on his craft. And the quarterback coach was like trying to get him to like adjust his elbow like a quarter of an inch, right? He was like, hey, if you get your elbow up like this, just this, you're going to get a little bit more leverage on the ball. And he's like, oh, okay, like this. And he's just throwing footballs to nobody, right? Like, and we think, oh, Tom Brady, like, what do we think he does? Like, he's like just hooking up with supermodels. It's like, no. And then he just, he has his wife, and you think his wife and him get along, like, no, they're going to have arguments. You think she comes out of the shower like Giselle, like Walker's like, no, she comes out and, and she snores and, farts in the bed and, and they have arguments. I mean, maybe they don't. I mean, but you get the point, right? It's like, Beyonce is the most gorgeous woman in the world, and her husband, who's Jay-Z, cheated on her, like, and we would think like, oh, if I was with Beyonce, I would be so loyal. It's like, no, like if I was with Beyonce, she would be my wife, she'd be my husband, and I would still be man, she'd still be a woman, and I would still have challenges and temptations. And, just because she married this incredibly successful man, she still got cheated on, and she still has to deal with that. You know what I mean? And, Tom Brady's satisfaction comes from like his only opponent is himself. And all of the haters out there, I mean, he doesn't care because he knows that he's on the football field as a 5-time Super Bowl champion, working on his craft when nobody's watching. Well, except for the fact that he had a documentary crew there. So maybe that's not the best example, but, but you know what I mean? And it's like, or, Jeff Bezos, like, oh, he just bought a, $500 million yacht or whatever. It's like, yeah, but what does he do every day? He has meetings. You know what I mean? Like, he's got to wake up and he has a Zoom meeting and he's got to talk to people and, you know what I mean? And be hated, because he's wealthy. And I don't know what type of guy he is, whatever, but it's like, he's just running a business. And there's this illusion that like, oh, I want to be that guy. It's like, maybe I don't want to be that guy, like maybe that's not actually a very fulfilling life, to have billions of dollars, to have everybody hate you because you're wealthy and you have to just run this company every day.
Well, and it's funny you bring up hating celebrities because it was you. You were the person that I think flipped me on Tom Brady. I'm almost positive. Do you remember?
I remember you and I had a conversation about him. Yeah.
Because I was like, dude, Tom Brady's such a, whatever I said, I can't remember. But you were the one that like, dude, do you understand that he is like the ultimate underdog? And I'm a huge fan of underdogs. And yeah, you were the one. You were the one changing the Tom Brady hater.
He went 6th in the draft. He went in the 6th round in the draft. Nobody was looking at him. And even if in his college days, like he was never the guy, right? And there are plenty of quarterbacks who are the guy, right? I mean, it's almost always the first draft pick out of the NFL draft is almost always a quarterback, like Kyler Murray. That's my guy, right? First pick of the draft, I mean, and you can go back for, how many years was the first pick? Always the quarterback, always the pretty boy, always the successful quarterback, always the savior who's going to come out and save the team. That was not Tom Brady, right? And I mean, and you just look at how that guy prepares and where his focus is. The only opponent that Tom Brady has is himself. He is always just trying to challenge himself. How can I be better? How can I get better? How can I get better? How can I get better? And the natural result of that has been millions of dollars and a supermodel wife. But like, he doesn't even like, you know what I mean? It's not like he thought, oh, well, once I get a Victoria's Secret model, then my life will be complete. He's still on the practice field with a small camera crew and a quarterback's coach. You know what I mean? And he's still saying like, oh, well, maybe I can see if I can win a Super Bowl at age 45. I mean, the guy's 44, 45 now, and he's still in the NFL. Like, that's not privilege. I mean, he has some privilege. I'm not saying that, he's 6'3" and whatever.
He has height, but there's plenty of people that have height.
Yeah. I mean, Kyler Murray's 5'10", I think, 5'11". I'm 6 feet tall. I'm taller than Kyler Murray. So how come I didn't get taken first in the NFL draft? You know what I mean? But I mean, but you can take that analogy, you take anybody who's been, successful. I mean, you look at Angelina Jolie, like she's arguably one of the most beautiful, talented, successful women in the world. And guess what? She's single. Like, sure, she had Brad Pitt.
You guys can send her the podcast. She needs this.
Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and she's got her challenges.
I want to come back to Gisele though, because you brought up Gisele. Gisele, the amazing story about Tom and Gisele. Have you read her book?
Oh no, I haven't. I don't know much about her story now.
So her book is actually really good. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called, but it is really good. And the interesting thing is they are identical. So Gisele was obviously not born in privilege. She was born in Brazil. I don't remember there's different levels of being born in Brazil. I don't remember which level she was born per se of wealth.
Like caste system or something?
Yeah, I mean a little bit. But so I don't think she was born of like means, but she just kept showing up. She would take the jobs that nobody wanted to take. If somebody wanted to shoot a supermodel in Antarctica, like, in a swimsuit, she would take the job. All the other girls were like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't want to go to Antarctica. I don't want to freeze. And so they were both willing to do the work. And I actually there's plenty of attractive supermodels in the world. And I know plenty of people think Gisele is gorgeous and stunning. And she is a beautiful woman. Like there are other women that I find more beautiful than Gisele. But her and Tom Brady, they really are. They're like identical, and they've built this amazing life. And if her book is anything like their life really is, which I think it is. I mean, she actually seems pretty grounded and like real. Yeah. Whereas we can't say that for all supermodels, And not that I sit and have conversations with many supermodels, but I just find that really interesting, that how we kind of find our person. But if each of them hadn't been living their lives, just doing their thing, they might never have connected. I mean, the odds of somebody from, I don't know where Tom Brady was born, but the odds of Tom Brady and someone from Brazil meeting up are, quite small, I
think Tom Brady's a California boy, because I seem to remember that he was in San Francisco. He was at a 49ers game watching Joe Montana. I seem to remember that story. Hopefully I'm not mixing facts. I'm sure all the sports fact checkers will. But anyway, yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, kind of on this theme of like, these people who we idolize and think like, oh, well, if I was rich and famous, then I would be happy. And it's like, maybe not, I think there are plenty of people who have happy and fulfilling lives who are not, supermodels and Super Bowl champions. Just as, there are plenty of, NFL football players and supermodels and actors and actresses and business owners who are miserable. There's this really fascinating podcast. The guy's name is, I hope I say this name right, Jerry Colonna, I think his name is. His nickname is the CEO Whisperer. This guy is just an incredible human being. So he's like a life coach for CEOs, like big time, like Wall Street guys, people who have started businesses, like just those really ambitious, I'm going to change the world with my business type people. And he has these conversations. And the funny thing is, when I first heard about like, a CEO life coach, I immediately pictured, kill, money, profits, like one of those guys. This guy is the most Zen, Buddhist, calm, empathetic. I mean, just leads with his heart. He's very soft-spoken. And on his podcast, and his podcast is called Reboot. And he'll talk to these CEOs, like, again, these highly ambitious, highly talented, very conscious, very intelligent, hardworking, driven human beings. And he'll have them breaking down in tears in moments because of how unhappy they are and how they've set up this pursuit of success as their happiness. But inside, they're still dealing with shame, and they're still dealing with doubt, and they're still dealing with, you know, feeling shame that they don't have better relationships with their kids or better relationships with their spouse, or that, you know, that they had to lay off a bunch of people in their company because, you know, because the profits weren't there, and they have to eat all of that, and always show up having all the answers and being confident and being Mr. or Mrs. CEO, like I've got it all together. And inside they're just as insecure, just as unsure, just as shooting from the hip as anybody else. And it's just really fascinating to hear this guy and his story. Jerry Colonna is he was like a super successful, I want to say Wall Street. I don't think he was actually on Wall Street. I believe he was like an investment. He ran like an investment fund, right? The venture capitalism. I think he was a venture capitalist and was very successful. And by the time he was 30, he was like multi-millionaire, right? Blew up, successful with finances, and was depressed. And as the story goes, like after he achieved all that success so early, he was ready literally to jump off a bridge. And he called his therapist like, hey, I'm ready to jump off a bridge and end it. Like that's where he was in his life. When again, like, you know, when I was in my early 20s or mid 20s, I would have been, that's what I was thinking. Like, you know, I was a realtor and stuff. And I was thinking like, oh man, if I can, you know what I mean? then I'll be successful. But here's this man who had that success, and he's ready to jump off a bridge, you know? And of course his therapist was like, you need to come in now. And now he's totally on this other side of just peace and being in tune with emotions. And he gets these high-powered CEOs just breaking down in tears. I just want to see my kids more, you know what I mean? And it's like, you know, and that's like, there it is, you know, it's like right in front of us. But again, you know, the society, and I think American society, and our profit driven, our commercial driven, our you know, kind of capitalist driven society where everything is buy. Got to buy the newest thing, got to buy the next thing. And if you don't look like this, if you don't have this car, if you don't have this, and it creates this illusion of, you know, this is what is going to make you happy. And that is never enough, because as soon as I get the new car, well, now I want the next new car. As soon as I get the Audi, whatever, now I want the Ferrari. As soon as I get the Ferrari, now I want the Lamborghini. As soon as I get that, well, now I want the Swank condo. Once I got the Swank condo, now I want the beach house. Once I want the beach house, then I want multiple beach houses. Once I have, you know, and it just never ends. And again, just coming back to like, if I am not happy right now in the puzzle that I am building, then that's where I need to change first. Is I need to go find a puzzle that I enjoy building. And right now I legitimately enjoy being in the comedy scene. I enjoy building that. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy trying to work on material. I enjoy trying to get funnier. I enjoy trying to connect. I enjoy trying to network. I enjoy auditioning. I enjoy, you know, like trying to impress the casting director. Like that's so much fun for me. It's like, oh, I got this audition. Oh, okay. That's fun for me. And if I don't get it, it doesn't affect me. Because if I got it, that would be the puzzle, you know, being built anyway, right? But if I get it, when I do book something, then I'm just super happy to go do this. Like I filmed a commercial like a month ago, and I had so much fun. And it's this small commercial. It's not going to go national. It's not going to be on TV. It's just going to be like on internet and stuff like that. And I loved auditioning for it. I loved that I booked it. And then I loved going down and just being on set and being the guy for 3 days. And then once the commercial was over, now I'm back to auditioning again. And I just love seeing what challenge is going to be thrown at me for the audition. And if I get the role, great. If I don't get the role, not great. You know what I mean? It's like, and you know, like I bet if we asked Tom Brady, I'm sure it's a bummer, you know, for the 2 Super Bowls he's lost, but how much does those affect him? Probably not at all, because he would be training the same way whether he won the Super Bowl or not. Like I guarantee he's training exactly the same right now, if not even more intense after winning the last Super Bowl with Tampa Bay than had he lost it, you know? Anyway, not to keep bringing up Tom Brady, but he seems to be a good example and a good metaphor of where this conversation is going.
I think he's a great example. And I want to come back to something you said, because I know you think very highly of Jerry. Is it Colonna or Colonna?
Kelowna. I hope I'm saying his
Colonna.
name right.
Okay.
It's been
So
a while since I've read his stuff, but he just came to mind. I'm going to Google just to make sure all the fact. I think it's Jerry Kelowna. Yes.
Jerry Colonna.
Um, yeah, Jerry Kelowna, Collonna.
Because I remember from some of our past conversations, he's had a pretty big impact in your life. And one of the thoughts that was coming up for me, I think, as the world gets a little bit more challenging for people these days, everybody has that time in their life where they metaphorically are thinking about standing on a bridge. They think, and it's just a thought that's going through our head that it's like, oh man, it would feel a lot better not. We think it would feel a lot better not to be here right now. It's not that people actually want to end their lives. It's they want to end whatever pain that is going on. But as a friend of mine says, like, it's just the death of thought. It's this thought that comes to us and feels so strong. But you think about the impact that Jerry Colon has had for. So I mean, just using the ripple analogy, if he would have been gone, I mean, all the people that lives that he's touched and all those CEOs that they touch, and that ripple effect goes on and on and on. And so, for people out there that are just having a lot of struggles, when we just hang on a little bit longer, life gets so much better. We don't have to have all the answers today. We have friends around us. We have people that we can turn to. We have people that we can reach out to. And it's so important to remember, we have no idea, like, somebody once said, you can tell how many seeds are in a fruit, but you can never tell how many fruits are in a seed. And we get so narrow sighted and we think about it. And, I call it crazy leprechaun thinking. We get all this crazy thinking in our head that, of all this stuff that feels like, just for whatever reason in that moment, something feels sort of like the right thing to do. But if we just pause, all of that eventually goes away. And we think about the impact that we can have on the world. You talked about being present. Like, I think presence is happiness. Like, when I'm present and just happy and living my life the way that I really want to, life goes really well. And like you mentioned with Tom Brady, there's this, he's learned to enjoy the process. As a stand-up comedian, like, I mean, you are a stand-up comedian. Like, you have learned to enjoy the processes. I mean, I remember, was it last year or the year before that you did just an insane amount of shows? It was like a really large number that I don't want to guess because I can't remember. It was like, was it 700 something? Was it
400?
400. Okay. Like, I mean, you did this incredible amount of shows on top of doing so much else, but you'd really learn to enjoy the process. And I was kind of thinking back to this puzzle thing. It's so funny how things kind of come in and then stay for the whole conversation. With the puzzle thing, it's like, we start off and we do a little bit of a puzzle, and then we realize we can do a bigger puzzle and a bigger puzzle and a bigger puzzle. But it doesn't matter what size of puzzle we're working on. I think a puzzle really just slows us down and gets us to settle. I mean, my favorite way to do puzzles is actually turn on something like just really chill, relaxed music, like something acoustic with some singing, and just kind of do it. Just kind of do the puzzle, there, and just kind of enjoy the moment. And I think it's one of those things that really just slows us down. And because we're focused on this, it's almost like we slow one thing down, all of our problems can kind of figure themselves out, or they just feel okay at the time. We don't have to solve everything in this moment,
Yeah, I'm a big fan. There's another, life coach guy out there named Kyle Cease, who I'm a big fan of. And he's real big on whatever is just right now in this moment, just love it. Right. And it's not that, like, if you're, at least for me, that like, if I'm in the moment, that means that I am happy, because maybe I am afraid, or maybe I am anxious, or maybe I am sad. And his whole thing is like, yeah, if you're sad, that's okay. And his whole thing is like, if you're sad, just say, I'm feeling sad right now, and I love that, because that's what is, right? And trying to avoid what is which I think a lot of those pursuits are, right? It's like, I'm feeling this sadness, or I'm feeling this emptiness, or I'm feeling this fear. So instead of just experiencing that and feeling it, I don't want to feel these negative emotions. So I'm either going to go accomplish, or I'm going to go to an addiction, or I'm going to go to, manipulation or fear or anger or control, or, a substance, or, zone out on Netflix. And his whole thing is like, no, it's okay to be sad. It's like this whole human experience. The only reason we're having the only thing that makes our human experience human is emotion. And this illusion that I should only ever feel happy all of the time is really cutting out a significant portion of the human experience, which is also the negative emotion. And it's okay to feel negative emotion. And again, kind of the hallmark, beer commercial society we live in is this idea that life is always supposed to be this ideal, volleyball beach party. And it's just not, because life is meant to be an emotional experience. And so if I'm feeling sad, that's fantastic. I'm feeling something. I'm having a human experience. And the idea is not, oh, I'm sad, get rid of it, run, watch some Netflix, go accomplish something so I don't have to think about it, get busy. It's like, no, what if I just sit with the sadness and just allow myself to feel it? What if I just allow myself to cry? And Kyle Cease's big thing is like, whatever you're feeling and love it, right? It's like, I'm sad and I love that. Because that's what is. That's what's true, and that's real, and that's the human experience. And my body and my psyche and my emotions want to feel sad right now. And instead of running from it, just sit with it. Don't do anything. Don't try to run from it. Try to zone out. Don't go to the thousands of addictions out there or whatever. It's like, no, I'm sad and I love that. I'm just going to be sad. I'm going to allow myself to feel it. And guess what? When I do that, then I feel it, and then it passes, and then something else comes in, right? If I give myself the time to just sit with it, instead of, oh, got to get on Instagram. Oh, look at all of these people on Instagram and Facebook who are having more fun than I am, and who have better lives than I am, and who are more attractive than I am. Oh, look at all these married people with their kids and families. Oh, they're having better. It's like, no, like it's all an illusion. We're all having a human experience. And if I can, the more that I just focus on mindfulness in the moment and being totally okay with what is, because what is what is. I can run from it. I can hide from it. I can lie to myself. I can imagine a different life where things are different. Hey, great, more power to you. But this moment is still all that I have. I mean, I could literally die tomorrow. I mean, I think if coronavirus taught us anything, it's that, people who we know and love are gone just like that. And not even the coronavirus. I mean, we always know that. Car accident, boom. Health thing, boom. You know what I mean? Tragedy, boom. It's like, it happens all the time. And all the universe has promised me, all God has promised me is this moment right now. And I get to choose how present I'm going to be with the reality that I live in right now. And again, I'm all about dreaming. I'm all about visualizing. I'm all about the vision board. I'm all about going for something, but only because doing that is fulfilling in the moment. But I'm no longer under the illusion that when I become multi-million-dollar sitcom comedic actor Paul Green, guess what? I'm still going to be me. And I'm still going to come home at the end of the day, and I'm going to have to be with me. As far as I know, I'm all I got. Maybe after this life, maybe there's reincarnation. You know what? I don't worry about all that, because that's not the reality I'm living in right now. I'm living in this earthly experience. I'm looking at these eyeballs, as far as I know, on a linear time theory, as far as I know. And all I got is the experiences that I have. And it doesn't matter if I'm Paul Green, who's a amateur comedian who, loses more money doing stand-up comedy than he makes, and does a couple shows here or there, and can travel a little bit, and was in Tucson last week, and was in Vegas the week before, and will be in San Clemente this weekend, and not really famous. And, that's who I am right now. but I'm under no delusion that when I become Paul Green selling out theaters, touring the country, that now I'm going to be somehow more happy and fulfilled than who I am right now. It'll be cool. I'll just be having that earthly experience, that life experience then. But now I'm just going to be in that puzzle, right? And now I'm going to figure out how to manage fame and figure out how to manage the fact that I will have people I already do have people who just hate me. Like, I'm not famous. And there are people who legitimately hate who I am, right? I've already experienced that. I've already experienced being trolled, right? It's like, when I'm famous, that's going to be times 10. You know what I mean? And everything that I do is now going to be scrutinized and criticized and dragged through the mud. And I will also have people who will love and adore me. Guess what? That's exactly where I am right now, right? It's just going to be more of that. And it's like, oh, now I'm single and, dating is tough. It's like, you think dating is going to be any easier when I'm famous? Because now I'm not going to know, well, who's actually interested in who I am and who actually just wants to try to get my money and fame. And, it's not like the problems are going to go away once I get that thing. It's just going to be a new set of problems. I read this book. I can't actually name the full title on your podcast, but it's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a
Yes, I know which book you're referring to.
Yeah. I would not recommend it to anybody who is sensitive to language. But ultimately, he just talks about that, like, really all we're choosing in life is what types of problems we want to have. Because no matter what it is, right? No matter what it is. So, if you're wanting to be, the next big, life coach, the next big, Tony Robbins or whatever, I want to be the next Kevin Hart or the next Jerry Seinfeld or whatever. Great. All we're doing is saying, cool, I want this series of problems versus this series of problems. It's a problem if you're poor. It's a problem if you're rich. It's a problem if you're single. It's a problem if you're in a relationship, right? Like being happy and single. It's like, great. Once we have a relationship, our problems are gone. Talk to anybody in a relationship. No, all we're doing is we're trading the problems of being single with the problems of now managing a relationship and managing trust and managing communication and managing the schedule and getting the joint Google Calendar and managing, different life expectations, and manage two human beings who are living a life experience and are growing and might grow independent of each other or might grow more together, or, like your other person, like, heck, or it's great. And then we lose that person, to death. Well, now we have to deal with that problem of having had this incredible love, and now we don't. And now it's like, Tom Brady has to deal with the problem of being a celebrity and having these high expectations. And guess what? He has a wife and kids too. And he's got to learn how to raise his kids. And he's got to learn how to manage the fact that he's so busy and, feeling maybe that shame of like, oh, I wish I could spend more time with my kids. But I got this multi-million-dollar football career I need to manage. And, like, there's always problems. And so again, we keep coming back to the same analogy, but it's like, whatever puzzle you're building, that's the problem, right? And once that puzzle is built, guess what? You're no longer interested in that puzzle anymore. Now it's just going to be a new puzzle with new problems and new challenges. And so, what I like about that book, it's like, don't choose what type of life you want to have. Choose what problems you want. What kind of problems do you want? And then go with the life that have the problems you want.
There's a lot of really good stuff in there, man. This has been a lot of fun so far. It's interesting though. Like, if everybody would just show up and almost love the puzzle they're doing, almost like a little. I've got this nephew. He's like 4 years old, and he's just like happy-go-lucky all the time, man. Like, this kid is just. Aside for the very few times he gets upset and frustrated, but it's like that. It's just going into whatever puzzle we're dealing with. But, the other thought that just occurred to me, Paul, is I don't think some people know what even puzzle they're working on. I think they're so scattered with so many things going on in their life. They haven't said that I want to work on this puzzle. We can only do one thing at a time. Like, I happened to be reading just a couple of days ago, the Book of Mormon. There's this part where this prophet named Nephi is building a ship. And it basically says in there, well, like it just occurred to me, is like he was only building one ship at a, like he only built one ship, but it's like I can only build one ship at a time. I have to get very clear on what ship that I'm building. Because if we're worrying about, okay, well, how's this business problem going to work out? How's this life problem going to work out? And I think it's also all the thinking that we have around these things. Like the one thing that I've really learned and understood, that each of us has this inner voice. We have this inner voice. People can call it spirit, they can call it God, they can call it whatever they want. But when we listen to that, and many people that have made it per se in the world of talk about this, they're like, they just come, like ideas just come. I mean, Angels and Airwaves, they did a video, and and I think Tom DeLonge just kind of says, the cool part about writing music, I don't even know what's going to happen. And it's like, okay, well, there's this force that really does lead and guide us. So if we understood that we're taken care of, that we're held, that we're watched over, and that we're guided, I liken it to almost like being able to tune into a radio station that has the answers to all of our problems and everything else. But most people are too busy running around solving all their own problems to just simply tune in. And it takes some work to tune in, to that inner voice. But I have found that to be so incredibly helpful, not thinking that I have to do it alone. Not thinking that, it just has to be like my mentor, Michael Neal, did a podcast that's like, kind of, it's not up to us. When we think it is, if it's got to be, then it's up to me, or whatever that phrase is, then like we take away that X factor. When I look at this, the spirit and our inner voice as this X factor, like that is our superpower, this powerful inner voice that really does guide us. Like I've written things in my book, and like, it's amazing some of the stuff that I write that I mean, these characters just kind of start to come out of nowhere. And it's like, where'd that guy come from? Whoa, that's kind of cool. And so we begin to play in this space where it's almost like we have this, supervisor just telling us what to do. And be like, okay, try this, try this, try this. And all of a sudden we look up and there's like this awesome skyscraper. And it's like, whoa. And you mentioned with Kyle Cease, that's really cool. You brought him up. I actually have a couple of his books in my library, but I've never actually opened them. So I'll have to actually read one of them.
His podcast is really, I love listening to him again, because he has just a very, I love listening to people who are Zen, man. Like, I mean, I love Tony Robbins. I'm a big fan, but I'm just kind of past the go, you know what I mean? And Kyle is just very present, very calm. Same with Jerry Colonna. And anyway, so just where I'm at in terms of the puzzle that I'm building, that's where I'm at. And anyway, so Kyle Cease.
Yeah. No, he didn't. And Michael Neal is a lot like that as well. He's very just, much more like that Zen. And I was talking to him, and he was sharing with me, he's like, Joseph, like, I have decided that I will go down with the ship being, he calls it inner wisdom, of just following this inner voice all the time. And he's built, an incredible life, as, I'm sure Kyle and Jerry have also. And it's just amazing that so many people are trying to give us the answers, but we think it has to be hard. It's like, I'm remembering there's this, fortunately I have it marked, otherwise I'd probably wouldn't have pulled this up. But this is an old Sioux legend that says, in ancient times, the creator wanted to hide something from the humans until they were ready to see it. He gathered all the other creatures of creation to ask for their advice. The eagle said, give it to me, and I will take it to the highest mountain in all the land. But the creator said, no, one day they will conquer the mountain and find it. The salmon said, leave it with me, and I will hide it at the very bottom of the ocean. But the creator said, no, for humans are explorers at heart, and one day they will go there too. The buffalo said, I will take it and bury it in the very heart of the great plains. But the creator said, no, for one day, even the skin of the earth will be ripped open and they will find it there. The creatures of creation were stumped. But then an old blind mole spoke up. Why don't you put it inside them? That's the very place they'll look. The creator said it is done. So you brought up Tony Robbins, and having been a Tony Robbins guy for many years. Tony Robbins is who got me into coaching, and 18 years ago, and I'm only, what am I now, 37? So I was like 18 years old or so when I got into this. He got me into coaching, and then, about 4 years ago, I met Michael Neal and just have begun to understand, back to the puzzle piece. It's like we have this puzzle, but it's almost like all the pieces get laid out for us when it's right. It's like we scrounge through the puzzle pieces, right? To find, just searching to find the right piece. But at the exact right moment, it just kind of shows up. And I don't know if you've ever had this experience. This might be a bit much, but at least for me, there's been moments when it's like you look at the place where the puzzle piece goes, and you're looking through the puzzle pieces and you find the right one, and you just know it's the right one. Because I do a lot of like 500 piece ones and stuff. So, I mean, you can't really see much on these pieces. But I think it's a little bit like that. We just have this inner guidance and this inner direction when we listen. I mean, how many times have you heard a story by, Matthew McConaughey, Green Lights? You've read that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought we'd had that conversation, but in there, he just talks about how the way he got his break, he just happened to be at a bar, and there was the guy that was filming a show. He was not supposed to, and I haven't seen Dazed and Confused, but I've seen a couple clips on YouTube. He wasn't supposed to be even close to a role in that. He was supposed to be like a super, super, super tiny role. But one of the other guys that was supposed to be a main role didn't take it seriously, and just, and gradually the other guy got edged out of his part, and Matthew McConaughey picked up his parts. And Matthew McConaughey even talks about the stillness. He talked about that time in Australia that, he was supposed to go there and be just with all these gorgeous girls on the beach, right? And he, it was, what do they call those things? Foreign exchange. Is that right? Foreign exchange. Yeah. And so he's supposed to be there, and instead he gets put in like the most remote part of Australia with a horrible, horrible family, and so instead he finds himself having massive amounts of alone time. And he said how beneficial that was for him. I mean, I've had some of that too, of just that stillness. And you get more in touch with this inner voice. I mean, The Artist's Way is, an amazing program I talk about a lot. That kind of helps with that as well, just getting back in touch with that creative voice. And I've tried the go, 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 go mentality, and the other mentality of, hey, show up and do what the inner voice instructs me to do what Heavenly Father and God instruct me to do. And life works out so much better. And it's so much funner. At least that's what I've found, is just, we try to do everything ourselves. But when we finally just say, hey, you know what? If I really do have this power inside of me that's going to tell me what to do, why not listen to that?
Amen to that, man. Yeah. Amen to that.
Well, Paul, we're getting to the end of our time here. So I just want to ask you, what's been one of the hardest things about being single for you? And what has helped you the most to find, to really get through some of those things and get back to this place of, we don't even have to call it happy. We can just call it presence. Because I think when we're in the moment, that's when we're happy. It's when we start thinking too much. Am I happy? Am I happy? Am I happy? It's just about presence. So what's been the hardest thing for you, and what's helped you, man?
Well, probably the only reason that it is hard, I think, is just because of the expectation that that's what should be. And I think there's an expectation that I should be married and I should have children by a certain age. And if I don't, then there's something wrong with me, or I'm not faithful enough, or I'm not trying hard enough. And so the hardest thing for me has been systematically extricating expectations that were pushed upon me that were not actually in my heart, and understanding that I'm an individual and my relationship with God is personal. And whether it's a religion or a society or a culture that is trying to tell me that in order for me to be happy or for me to be fulfilling my purpose, I have to be this other thing. And one of those things is being in a committed married relationship where I'm raising a family. And so the hardest thing for me has been when that wasn't working out, dealing with the shame and the guilt and the shame and the guilt that I'm now that this is wrong, that I'm wrong, that I am not right, and that there's something wrong with me because I haven't achieved this milestone or this expectation. And then so pushing against that and really getting clear with who I am and what my purpose is, which is an individual. And then also having those problems, right? It's like, so these are the problems that I am choosing, and these are the problems that I feel I'm supposed to be experiencing right now as a single person, and the loneliness and the lack of companionship, on a consistent basis, going home to a cold, empty bed every night, like all of those are real. Like, that's a real thing. We are social beings, we're intimate beings, we're physical beings, we're sexual beings. So when that is not a regular part, that companionship, it's that there are problems there. And of course there are going to be problems there. And also the full acknowledgement that, had I gotten married when I was 24, 25, when I was initially expected to, and when I initially thought that I wanted to, then I would be 40 years old, and having my problems now of, and who knows what those problems would have been. I can honestly say that the level of maturity and emotional intelligence I had at 25, I don't think I would have survived. I don't think I would have survived a marriage. I think I would be divorced. I think if I would have gotten married ever, I mean, I'm just now starting to I'm 40 now, and I've had huge revelations just in the last couple of months about myself, and huge adjustments of growth and emotional intelligence that I didn't even have a year ago. Like, I think if I would have gotten married a year ago, it would already be strained, and I don't know, maybe I would have rose to the occasion. That's not really the important thing, but it's like, I am where I am now, and I have the problems that I have now, and those are the problems that I've chosen, and those are the problems that I get to work through. That's the puzzle I get to build. And with that is going to come challenges, and with that is going to come opportunities. And I get to choose how happy I am or fulfilled I am based off of how I approach, how I show up in building this puzzle that I'm in right now. That's all I got.
Well, dude, one thing they kind of heard in that is just, be where you are instead of where you want to be. Like, we all think that by dreaming of these places, like I am a total fan. Like, I have a statement that I write every year of where I want my life to be in a year. And I read it every day or listen to it every day, one of the two. And I'm a big fan of that. But if I sit there reading it all day long, it's probably not going to be very good. It's probably going to, and I think so many people spend that time of not being where they are, but being where they want to be. Oh, if I just had this life, like we've been talking about. And so, dude, thank you so much, Paul, for joining me on the podcast, man. I've always enjoyed our conversations, and I know other people will enjoy this as well. So thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. And let me give you a moment to just tell people so Paul Green is actually a fantastic comedian. I've seen his shows for quite a while now, and he's been a friend for a while too. And he does an amazing job. So if you guys get the chance to see a show he puts on, I highly recommend it. He has really worked on and perfected his craft and continues to work on it. So let me give him a chance to tell you guys how you can connect with him, how you guys can follow him, and even any shows you have coming up or something, man.
Sure. So I am Paul Green Comedy on everything. Just Paul Green spelled as normal and boring as you can think it. Paul Green Comedy. I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook, and my website is paulgreencomedy.com. And shows, I am LA based. I have been starting to travel a little bit more since things opened in pandemic. I actually was just in Tucson, Arizona, as I said, last weekend, and in Vegas. I don't have any out of town shows currently on the books, but there's always things getting booked. I was doing in 2020, I had a bunch of things that were scheduled out, but of course all got canceled through the pandemic. So just trying to, kind of reemerge from that and see where I end up. But yeah, all my shows I always advertise on my Instagram and Facebook or on my website at Paul Green Comedy.
Well, thanks so much, Paul. We really appreciate you having you, and we'll see you guys later.